believe about Epstein. I'd say it's almost like you take it for judicial notice that there's something of a conspiracy there, that there's something of a client list there, for lack of a better word. And the debacle of the last week is it's undeniable. It's atrocious. They keep doubling down on it. And then the only question is, where does the blame lie, and where does the buck stop? So, people have been ragging on Bongino and Patel for a while because they're deputy director of the FBI, and people are saying they're in on this cover up. Their, analysis for the last 5 years was, this is a big damn story that implicates big influential people. Patel goes on Benny Johnson a year and a half ago, says Bill Gates is on the list. That's why he's petitioning or, lobbying government to not disclose the list. And then in the dead of night or something on Sunday, this unsigned, undated memo is leaked to Axios, effectively saying no list, no blackmail material, Epstein killed himself, and anybody suggesting otherwise is basically perpetuating damaging conspiracy theories. And you're like, okay, this is inexplicably wild. It's an unsigned, undated memo, which looks suspicious on its face, but it's uploaded to the DOJ website after the publication of the Axios article, from what I could piece together with the timeline. And so there was like, nobody believes it. The only question is, who's to blame for this, and who's calling the shots?
Well, I can only aspire one day to have as great a head of lettuce as Viva Frei has. That's what I like to see. I like to see a smiling Viva before I actually bring him on. I'm trying my damnedest over here, all right?
You're getting there. Give it another. This is 4 years in the making. Like this was 2021, the last time I cut it, when I said I'm growing the freedom fro and I will not cut it until I have freedom. I'm in the free state of Florida, but I figured I could buy myself a few more years.
Yeah, that could be a lifelong battle. Actually, you could end up with hair down onto the ground at this rate.
My wife is still surprised that it keeps on growing, because she predicted about 6 inches ago that it would stop growing at some point. But thus far, I'll lose it one day, so I'm going to enjoy it for the time being.
I think that's a good mentality to have. I might be embracing something similar, even though I don't think we have those problems yet. But you can never be too sure. All right. Aside from having a good time here with Viva Frei joining me, the two issues we're talking about is what's going on with the illegal alien raids and just everything surrounding that. Obviously, I know I've been following a lot of your commentary on the Epstein files as well. So why don't we start there? I don't know if you want to get into just the total debacle that it was, or if you want to get into some of the strangeness as far as the actual legal proceedings are concerned. But you've been all over this issue on the right side of it for a long time, including in the last week. So why don't we just kind of open it up there?
Well, yeah, let's. I've been I had a great prediction which came to fruition to the T with the Diddy conviction, or the lack thereof, where I said they're going to get him on 2 lesser charges. The big charges he'll walk. Prosecution over, the trafficking done, and everybody goes home, and they never uncover the conspiracy because the prosecution was the cover-up. Epstein, it's everybody knows what we believe about Epstein. I'd say it's almost like you take it for judicial notice that there's something of a conspiracy there, that there's something of a client list there, for lack of a better word. And the debacle of the last week is it's undeniable. It's atrocious. They keep doubling down on it, and then the only question is, where does the blame lie, and where does the buck stop? So, people have been ragging on Bongino and Patel for a while because they're deputy director of the FBI, and people are saying they're in on this cover up. Their, analysis for the last 5 years was, this is a big damn story that implicates big influential people. Patel goes on Benny Johnson a year and a half ago, says Bill Gates is on the list. That's why he's petitioning or, lobbying government to not disclose the list. And then in the dead of night or something on Sunday, this unsigned, undated memo is leaked to Axios, effectively saying no list, no blackmail material, Epstein killed himself, and anybody suggesting otherwise is basically perpetuating damaging conspiracy theories. And you're like, okay, this is inexplicably wild. It's an unsigned, undated memo, which looks suspicious on its face, but it's uploaded to the DOJ website after the publication of the Axios article, from what I could piece together with the timeline. And so there was like, nobody believes it. The only question is, who's to blame for this, and who's calling the shots? So did you see the breaking news today, Laura Loomer? It's a scoop, so to be taken with a grain of salt to some extent. Some stories pan out, others don't, suggesting, and it's been reported elsewhere, that Bongino stormed out of the office, which may or may not be the case, but that there's disagreement and that it looks like Bondi is the one blowing this entire situation. And then the only question is why. So,
well, let me kind of respond to that with a little contextual angle here. When Patel was first confirmed, you may recall there was a story about Patel basically doing an end around the DOJ in his communication with President Trump and getting a line directly to the White House, something that is not traditional for the FBI director, usually going through the DOJ for communication, or at least doing co-communication, and he basically skipped Bondi. So I think there was already maybe some either an issue or an awareness that, hey, Bondi isn't going to be, nobody's really taking her seriously. She's not helping herself either. I also think that, and I know you've pointed this out as well, when you watch specifically the Maria Bartiromo interview with Bongino and Patel, the body language, right? The body language. And I think we've seen similar body language from Patel and Bongino since, where they're not comfortable. Whatever it is they're saying, or whyever it is they're saying it, they're not comfortable. They're not comfortable. They don't like it. And I've always said this from the beginning, and this is why I've kind of treated the Bondi situation differently from the Patel and Bongino situation. Bondi's already made, right? She has nothing to lose. She's already got her job at Fox News. And to me, look, I've met her. She's a really nice person. She's really sweet. I don't think she's corrupt, but she's in way over her head. She's just in way over her head. And I don't really buy into the dumb blonde things. Actually, blonde girls typically have a higher IQ than other hair colors, so I don't really buy into that. But I mean, she's basically playing the role of like a dumb blonde. And so this is supposed to be a serious administration, and then here's Bondi like prancing around, going on Fox News like a blonde ditz. Again, she's nice, but it's just like that. That's just the reality of the situation. But then there's Bongino and Patel. They're playing with their own money. They're playing with their own reputations. They're playing with their own future. They're not playing with house money like Bondi is, who just kind of came in as a seat filler. So I've always approached it differently. And I think now Bongino and Patel are like, all right, here's the deal. We're either going to fix this and we're going to start changing messaging, or we're going to just get rid of Bondi, or we're going to be out because we're destroying our future at this point.
The future, I'm not saying this as though, it's a wish. Future and past to some extent. Like, people are going to look at everything Kash Patel said for the last 5 years now and say he was either wickedly wrong if the memo's true, or he's been whipped into submission if what he said is true, and he has to now say, I love Big Brother. But you are right, and people don't appreciate this. Patel doesn't need a government job for the rest of his life. Bongino sure as sugar didn't. Whether or not that's true for Bondi, a career government job is a step up for her, not a step down. And so, forget what Dan gave up to do this. Like, everyone says, it's not because he gave up millions and millions of dollars, the most popular podcast on the internet, that it means he's, you forgive him for everything going forward. But it does mean that you look at it a little bit differently. He gave something up to do this. He's not picking something up by doing it. And so the other thing is, Deputy Director of the FBI is not the Attorney General. Director of the FBI is not the Attorney General. And that interview with Bartiromo, we have 5 years of baseline for Dan Bongino's body language. I know him personally. You could tell a lot from that interview. It was like someone had just been scolded by their wife and said, you're not going to talk politics at the Christmas party. And some people were saying it was so obvious that it was almost like a signal to people. Yes, I don't really stand behind this, but I'm an employee of the state right now. I don't get to share my personal opinion like I did for the last 5 years. Bottom line, the buck sort of stops with the president, obviously, but Bondi is the AG. I don't know who makes recommendations for the Secret Service. I'm a little disappointed with their Butler sanctions or their Butler repercussions, but we can get there in a second. Bondi's, the one calling the shots. Patel and Bongino are employees of the state, and we know what they think. They've been telling us what they think for the last 5 years. I know what I believe, and I know what I don't believe. And what I don't believe is that memo, which unsigned contradicts what Bondi said within the last 5 months. Unsigned contradicts what Bondi said in that cover letter that she put on Bindergate, which humiliated a bunch of conservative, call them influencers, but I call them alternative media. Step one, phase one of the Epstein release, humiliate the most loyal Trump-supporting alternative media, DC Drano, Libs of TikTok, Liz Wheeler. Yeah, go humiliate them with a cover letter that says, we're going to, to Patel, we're going to get the, Epstein documents and his clients in the letter signed by Bondi. And now they just come out with this unsigned memo leaked to Axios, uploaded to the website. no press conference, no explanation, no nothing. My goodness, if Bongino and Patel are caught in the crossfire, at some point they're going to say, if we can't call the shots and nobody's listening to us, we'll up and leave because this is damaging for our past, present, and future.
Yeah, and Bondi ran that whole Bindergate thing all on her own. That was a her thing. And I'm not just standing up for the influencers, alternative media, however you want to say it, that went there and did that because I know them or I'm even friends with some of them. That's just the truth. And for a lot of them, it has been reputational damage that they'll probably never recover from. I think they were set up. I think that they were put in a compromising position. I think part of the reason why they did the whole stunt was because they wanted the awareness for the Epstein files. But there's no doubt once you kind of get that access and influence, now you kind of have a loyalty thing too. And so now it's like you're afraid of like, well, where do I stand here? I want the access to the White House. I want to show I'm loyal, but now I've lost some credibility. So that was kind of a whole debacle in and of itself. But again, it leads right back to Pam Bondi. Here's another thing I think is worth mentioning with you. And I don't think Bondi is aware of this. I would say Patel and Bongino are because they understand social media and they kind of understand the modern media landscape and the modern interaction, let's say, with an audience, where I think Bondi is, and I'm not insulting her for her age, but I think she's too old to really comprehend what's going on. When you go, I could look at a bunch of different examples, but I'll give you two. If you go, Netanyahu was just in the White House and a bunch of people were taking pictures with Netanyahu and sharing them on social media. When I tell you you can't find a single positive reply, I mean, you can't find a single positive reply. And it's the same thing. The White House puts up this image of Trump as Superman. I mean, 2 months ago, if the White House did that, people would eat it up. They'd love it. We'd be laughing and celebrating and jovial and making jokes. They do it today. Go into the replies, 95% negative. So I think Bongino and Patel are really starting to notice and see it's like, hey, this is coming off the rails. We're now being dealt reputational damage. We either get it on the rails now or I don't know. They might just have to walk away.
Well, I think they've known that from day one. At least they thought they would go in there. First of all, what they're doing in terms of fighting crime, it shouldn't go unnoticed and it should go praised. The only problem is like Bongino puts out a tweet, busted 400 kilograms of fentanyl, 600 child predators, whatever. And then all the replies are, what about Epstein? What about Epstein? What about Epstein? So, they have another job, which they're doing and doing successfully, and getting bogged down in this. And I don't know that she's too old. The Epstein files, the Epstein case is the stuff of not internet lore, cultural lore. It's like, it says it's on par with JFK assassination, Martin Luther King assassination, which is exactly why the disclosures were promised at the same time. That's how important it is. And if the argument at the end of the day is there's no client list, in quotes, okay, what about the unindicted co-conspirators? Okay, well, if the argument is some people might have been frequenting Epstein's island, but not partaking in anything, and there's no evidence of it, so we don't want to smear their names by releasing this information, then you have a press conference to explain that away and let people accept that explanation on its face or not. What you don't do is this dead of the night, unsigned, undated memo, and then shame anybody who continues asking the questions that were so important. This matter became an election issue when Trump got elected. And I said from the beginning, this was a litmus test issue, the Epstein case. You promise disclosures, you talk about an Epstein client list, you humiliate the influencers who thought they were getting new information. In fact, they got less information than was already publicly available. Then you promise a release in phases, and then it comes to, there's nothing, shut up and go home. I might have to let my dog out of the office, but so it's unacceptable. It's unacceptable. The only question is now it's damage control. But if you have the people who know not what the people want, but what the people expect, and you have someone who is totally unaware. Bondi's so unaware that there are cases going to the Supreme Court that the federal government is not intervening in. She's Attorney General. Douglas Mackey, the alt-right meme maker, they pursued that appeal, which he just won. But she's out of touch, incompetent. The only question is it incompetence or corruption?
Viva Frei, my guest, vivabarneslaw.locals.com, on X at the Viva Frei. All right, I want to give you two lanes to kind of sprint down here and then maybe get into the leaked memo. And that is the Florida versus New York. And I did a review of this in the first hour. But basically, when you look at the sweetheart deal he got in Florida and then New York saying, no, not so fast, part of that deal, when you read into it, is no, there are co-conspirators. Like, that was like part of the original deal was like, there are co-conspirators, but part of this deal is we're gonna basically exonerate them. And then New York came in and said no. So that's one lane that you can sprint down. And then here's the other. And I don't really see this getting much play, but Bondi's talked about all the victims and the videotapes and all of this other stuff. Well, why is nobody asking, like, what is the source for this? I mean, shouldn't this all launch a bigger investigation? Like, shouldn't this all launch, like, where are the kids coming from, right? Who's trafficking the children? Because I mean, Bondi has admitted, it's like, yeah, this is the worst content on the internet. There's all these victims and there's these minors. So, I mean, clearly there's a whole nother realm out there where children are being abused. So it's like, no, you don't shut the case. You dig in further. So, I mean, those are the two lanes. It's like, where do you go? It's like, hey, this isn't the shut case. This should open a case. And then the Florida versus New York decision.
This is actually part of one of the, I say it's not a conspiracy theory, but like if they were going to lie to us and we were expected to buy into the lie, one reason I could think of is, okay, fine, they're doing like sting operations of the people who procured or produced the CSAM, child sexual abuse material, because he had tens of thousands of videos. So maybe, you know, if you want to give the benefit of the doubt, why would they lie to us? It's to let the criminals on the other end think they've gotten off while they investigate. I don't believe that. That's as much of a steel man as I can make. They haven't explained if the videos, the CSAM on Epstein's computer was produced by him or procured from others. Either way, it leads to the next question. Who was in the production if he did it himself? And who was in the production if he procured it from others? So even that explanation, oh, he had child sexual abuse material on his computer, tens of thousands of videos of allegedly what we're led to believe is other people. Are they investigating that? Do they have to lie to us so they can have a thorough investigation there? I don't believe it, but the flip side is everyone's like, doesn't make any sense. And so was it his material? As far as it goes for unindicted co-conspirators, you know, I was on with Megyn Kelly earlier today, and the attorney Dave, he's the state attorney. You know, back in the day, everybody knew there were unindicted co-conspirators. The only question is, were they innocent of wrongdoing? Or was this a sweetheart deal out of Florida to protect unindicted co-conspirators? Now, I have to go back to that sweetheart deal, and my understanding is that may be where the controversy lies. One thing that I'm thoroughly convinced of now, and is part of the issue that I have also with relying on the file to say that Epstein killed himself and there's no other people involved, that's the file literally coming out of a criminal FBI under the likes of Comey, Brennan. That is such a criminal organization. You know, there's investigations or referrals for criminal investigation right now. You can't rely on that file for whatever's in it or whatever's not in it. And so then you got to go back to the beginning and see what the heck was going on, why they got that sweetheart deal at the time, and whether or not it involves unindicted co-conspirators of political influence, which I'm sure it does, because Prince Andrew, who's not an incidental, tangential party to all of this, is as pretty much as high as you can get. But yeah, it's then the other thing, Owen. What went missing at the Southern District of New York field office for the FBI when Pam Bondi had to issue that scathing letter to Kash Patel to say they're going to comply with my request, and I'm shocked that they haven't already?
Well, and even that deserves maybe further discussion, because it's like these things have been sitting around there for 5 years. You know, it's not like this is some new thing that they just got. They've been there since the first Trump administration. But to digress off of that for a second, let's talk about the leaked memo, because this is something that kind of just came and went, and nobody really wants to address it or talk about it. First of all, and I remember when it first happened, the same Trump sycophant groupies, it's fake, stop reporting on it, it's fake, it's Axios. Well, I guess it's not fake, because the White House has now essentially triple confirmed that it's real. Okay, so it's real. Well, then who leaked it, and why, and who wrote it? And why? There's no date. There's no name. I mean, you'd think that the scandal of the leak itself would be big enough for people to dig into, plus the fact nobody has a name or a date on it. How is the memo not getting really, I mean, obviously the memo of, hey, we're done with the Epstein thing, that gets all the attention, but it's like, what about the leak? What about no date, no name?
Owen, like, nobody's going to look at my backdrop and have any doubts as to who I, you know, vigorously support in terms of who needed to be the president and who is the president of our time. any criticism really is constructive and not like the same type of criticism I issue against Justin Trudeau or Kamala Harris. How the hell has Trump not put his foot down on this? Like, I don't think that he understands. Trump made this an issue of the campaign. Trump brought this up pretty much for the first time, made Epstein the household name in 2015. He understands how serious this is, and he understands it's not a question of being loyal to Trump. It's a question of being loyal to the truth, or at the very least, appreciative of the truth of this conspiracy, which is a bona fide conspiracy, and how he's putting up with an unsigned, undated memo. And you're right. At first, I'm getting railed on the internet because people are saying, Viva, it's a fake memo. It's on Access. It's like, dude, I just sent you the link from the DOJ website. And they're like, oh, that's an unlisted page. It was leaked there by a hacker. It's like, if that's the case, A, repudiate the memo, and B, go after the leaker. But it is not a leaked memo. It's not like the same type of sabotage that people were alleging with the intel on the Iranian strike that didn't do as much damage. And they say that was leaked classified info of low confidence. This is, who the hell thought this was a good idea? Todd Blanche gets on Twitter today and says, no, we all discussed it. We all agreed on this memo and we all signed off on it. And I replied, it's like, literally nobody signed off on it. That's the problem. How do you not appreciate how that looks to people who think there is a conspiracy with Epstein, period, full stop. Whether or not he had a client list, whether or not he killed himself, which as far as I'm concerned, even if he killed himself, that's a conspiracy. To put out this memo that says nothing to see here and then assert that it was agreed to and signed off on by all parties when it's signed off on by nobody is just, it's almost like it's creating chaos for the sake of it. And then I genuinely wonder, are they creating chaos as a smokescreen to do something else? Who the hell knows? But throwing a bone of, now we're also criminally investigating Brennan and Comey for crimes which are lapsing by the day, as Patel said it is in his Rogan podcast. That's not going to be the consolation prize for the monumental, unforced blunder that this has been. And they better fix it sooner than later, because this can spin even further out of control if it's not out of control enough already.
Well, and at this point, I mean, this is just how I feel. It's just the truth. I'm losing confidence and trust in this administration. That I can't help it. That's just the truth of how I feel. I wish it wasn't the case. But so that's why I'm saying maybe 1% chance that they really go after Comey and Brennan. Like, to me, that was just red meat to cover for the disaster that was that memo. But, here's another interesting fact of the memo. They edited it. Whoever put it out rushed it to press so quickly that they had all kinds of spacing errors on page 2, and the actual Department of Justice seal was like a low bit image. They actually edited it, fixed the spacing issues, and put up a new image that was sharp.
Oh, and if someone were to think that a government has been co-opted to cover up a serious conspiracy involving global political leaders, this is how it would play out in a comedy. Not even in a John le Carré or a Grisham novel. It's ridiculous. It's patently preposterous. And I can understand the pressure that Bongino and Patel are under. They're not the decision makers. And if I'm sitting there looking at people screw this entire thing up, and I say, look, I'm trying to help you. I've given up wealth and a life of pleasure to do this. You're not listening to us. You're making everything worse. You're compromising this administration, and you're compromising our reputation and goodwill. I can only imagine how frustrating it is for them, but to double, triple down on it. I mean, all right, let's see some internal correspondence that says who signed off on this, who drafted it, and let them just take a press conference for a few hours and answer some questions on it. Thus far, nothing. Caroline Levitt and Pam Bondi herself has said zero all week. Todd Blanche, 6 days later, yeah, it's an authentic memo and we all signed off on it, despite having no signature.
And then to throw gasoline on the fire, Trump says, stop talking about it. Why are we still